And Bryan is a program manager for the Center on Standards and Assessment Implementation, which is a national technical assistance center based in San Francisco, California. He has worked extensively in California and New Mexico, providing professional development and training to teachers and administrators. He is a former middle school special education teacher. And my hat's off to you for that, Bryan. And he has hopes to one day return to the classroom. Bryan is always looking for opportunities to connect with other educators and discuss successes they have achieved and challenges they are facing. His most recent success is getting his 1-year-old son to sleep through the night. And the greatest challenge he's currently facing is potty training his 2-year-old daughter. Bryan, we are so glad you've joined us during this challenging time to share what CSAI has for Native Americans.
Yes, thank you very much for that introduction. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm excited to share some of the resources that CSAI has available for all interested stakeholders. So as a little background, I wanted to talk about what CSAI is and what our objectives are. So we provide state education agencies and regional comprehensive centers with technical assistance, research support, tools, and a variety of other resources that help inform policy decisions with a focus on standards, assessment, and accountability. Now, for those of you that may not know, the regional centers are comprehensive centers that serve all 50 states and U.S. territories. There are 15, and they are tasked with providing technical assistance to their specific states. In addition to those 15 regional centers, there are 7 content centers which cover a variety of topics. CSAI is one of them, and through our name you can tell what our content area is. We also have additional funding to help support specifically Alaskan Native and American Indian students. Our main priorities for the center are to improve policy and practices of the districts and states that are supported by the regional centers, to increase the capacity of states and regional centers to provide that assistance, and use technology and the media to promote engagement, effectiveness, efficiency to apply the research that is provided. One of the main things that the centers does is monitor state policies as they change and provide information so that people can keep track of current policy and practices across the nation. We try to, as much as we can, like with this Bridge event webinar, collaborate with other regional centers that provide assistance to large populations. On CSAI's website, we have a very extensive resource library. And before I get into explaining the library, I wanted to put up a poll to find out what resources all of you listening today typically try to access. So the poll is up on your screen. If you could please respond to the various types of resources that you use most frequently. CSAI's resource library provides a wealth of information, including guidance documents, research papers, policy briefs, as well as tools and other websites that are aimed at supporting state and local education agencies in making decisions about standards, assessments, accountability systems, and practices, instructional practices. These are more than just resources that we find and post into a clearinghouse. Each resource that we select is carefully reviewed by center staff and tagged so that it can be easily searched within the database. Currently, we review over 450 resources a year, which doesn't necessarily mean that all are published. The content experts that find and review resources try to find only resources that have that are evidence-based, that involve current practices and that are being used on an ongoing basis. Resources are either identified by center staff or they're nominated by external parties. Actually, anyone who's on the CSAI website can nominate a resource through our Contact Us button, and we receive a number of requests every week for resources to be reviewed, either from people who are accessing the website on their own or from our regional centers or partners. Through the vetting process, we use a common research-supported protocol that's based on the What Works Clearinghouse standards. This initial rating system that we used was developed in 2007 as a joint effort across all the content centers in our network. And this process that we're using makes sure that people who are accessing our resources have common and customizable products and tools that states and districts can use to improve their standard and assessment systems and increase professional capacity. The criteria by which the resources are reviewed are presented to the reviewers on a form, and so we try to make sure that we are looking for resources that are of high quality, that have good communication so that it's actually resources are readable, they can be understood when you're going through them. We also rate them for their utility. So as you know, there are a wealth of resources out there, but sometimes it's difficult to find one that you can actually use for the purposes that you are seeking. And then we rate them for their effectiveness. And the effectiveness is rated not on how effective we think they are, but how effective they've been proven in the literature around the research or the research studies that have been done around the resource. So, as I mentioned, we do have additional funding for American Indian and Alaskan Native students, and for a portion of that funding, we have made an effort to increase the number of resources that target the student population. I'd like to put up a poll now to see what resources you, in your day-to-day, you have the most trouble locating. So resources that you have trouble finding when you're actually actively searching for them. The expansion of the resource library that CSAI is conducting includes increasing the number of resources around curricular supports and instructional resources for teachers, increasing the number of guidance documents we have for educators and school teams that are making instructional decisions, and linking to external groups and external resources to direct people towards the variety of helpful tools that they have to offer. All right. It's looking like the majority at this point are having trouble finding instructional strategies, and I'm sure especially through what we saw through Diana's presentation, we're trying to fix that gap as we speak. The next few slides that I want to go over, I want to discuss a few of the available resources that we have on the CSAI website. and just to give you a preview of what we have available there. So this first resource is titled The Common Core Initiative, Education Outcomes in American Indian and Alaskan Native Students, Observations and Recommendations. And this actually was developed by CSAI staff in response to a request that came in about the connection between the Common Core and American Indian and Alaskan Native students. And so we developed a monograph that explores the ways in which large-scale school reform plays out in American Indian and Alaskan Native communities and schools. And despite the title, the monograph explores principles that are applicable to all schools, not just the ones using Common Core standards. This resource starts out with a historical and cultural perspective. The author focuses on the translation of research into concrete steps leading to American Indian and Alaskan Native student academic success and personal well-being. The premise of creating the guidance document was the fact that over the past several decades, we have extensive and rich insights about what education practices and policies best support the learning of American Indian and Alaskan Native students. In short, when local resources, knowledge, and approaches to teaching and learning are capitalized on, AIAN students flourish. But when dominant culture values and practices serve as the only basis for decision-making about schooling for students, AIAN students frequently become disengaged, dropping out of school in alarming numbers. So this monograph explores ways in which large-scale school reform efforts play out in communities and schools that serve AIAN students. The investigation is seated within a historical and cultural perspective with a reference to an extensive body of research. And drawing on this research, we try to make a strong effort to point to specific productive steps that can be undertaken to select and implement education reforms. And this document was developed by Sharon Nelson-Barber and Elise Trumbull, and it was published just this past December. And right now we're working on developing a professional development series around it that we could take, hopefully, to your communities soon. The next resource I'd like to talk about is titled Menu of Possible Interventions for Native American Students, Guidance, Practices, Programs, Strategies, and Resources. So this resource covers a broad number of methods and tools for supporting Native American student learning, including research-based support systems, effective teaching strategies. It links to national and state Native American programs initiatives. And a key strength to this resource is that it covers a broad number of topics for improving Native American student education, even though it is very brief, only 4 pages. While the resource sacrifices depth over coverage, it has a strong starting point for teachers and administrators who are not well-versed in specific interventions to support Native American student learning. The resource itself is very easy to read and navigate, and as is a significant problem with a lot of resources that are posted online, the big question is, do the links work? And so that's one thing that we tend to do at CSAI is continually go back and make sure that all the links that we're promoting on the website are actually functional and direct you to where you want to go rather than getting an error page. This resource itself is very useful, and it has a high utility and covers a variety of topics, including state and national programs and initiatives, school and district support recommendations, and culturally responsive teaching strategies. The third resource I wanted to share is titled Empowering Teachers to Empower Students, Native American Education Curriculum Guide K through 12. This is sort of the opposite of the last resource. It is extremely large. It's nearly 300 pages, and it's based on the work of teachers from schools in northeast Nebraska that primarily serve Native American students. The collection it's a collection of curriculum units for students in K through 12 that incorporates Native American literature and activities into academic areas so that instruction becomes more culturally relevant, with students more engaged in the learning. It incorporates the standards from the Center for Research on Educational Diversity and Excellence, CREED, the 2004 Nebraska State Standards, and the American Indian Content Standards. For each activity that's included, they provide assessment and evaluation ideas, as well as links to online resources and suggestions for library materials. This resource has a diverse and broad amount of content that's based on a reasonable amount of research. Each activity within it is between 2 and 5 pages long and incorporates a cross set of standards that's listed in the summary. The downside of this resource is that generally rubrics and actual assessments aren't provided, but there are a number of activities and a variety of options for teachers to select, especially within the content areas of English language arts, science, history, and social studies. It's a very readable publication and has a moderate amount of evidence of effectiveness, and based on a study that was conducted that indicated a statistically significant increase in reading achievement of the Creating Sacred Places program that is integrated into the resource. So that some of the resources within it have a research base, and there are studies conducted to see what the impact is, and others don't. The last resource that I wanted to go over on the webinar today is titled Gifted Native American Students, Overlooked and Underserved, a Long Overdue Call for Research and Action. The researchers of this article conducted a comprehensive review of literature on gifted, talented, creative Native Americans. They conducted focus groups from 3 tribes, and assumptions about Native American students were reviewed and addressed with regard to identifying and serving gifted Native American students. Data from 3 sites revealed differences and nuances among the 3 different population groups. And the process itself resulted in more accurate and current assumptions for these groups of students, as well as a procedure that could be replicated for use with other populations. The resource itself is very fair and balanced. They definitely took a research approach to the creation of the publication. The research findings sort of dissipate common stereotypes of young American Indian students, in particular commonly held beliefs about the commonality between different tribes. And many of the methods used within the research study itself were appropriate. The communications quality is okay, but is sort of increased by the readability and the brevity of the sections. The utility is very high, especially for those working in American Indian, Alaskan Native education field. It doesn't offer any evidence of effectiveness, but the utility of the resource itself sort of offsets that. So if you find, again, I'd like to encourage you to submit questions in the chat pod. If you find that you have been looking for certain resources that you have been unable to find thus far in your search, feel free to go to the CSAI website and contact us to suggest what we can either try to research and or produce ourselves. One of the big initiatives that the center is undergoing for the remainder of 2016 and into 2017 is to try to find more, and this is primarily in response to ESSA, is try to find more evidence-based interventions that can be used specifically for Native American and Alaskan Native students.
Thank you very much, Bryan. We really appreciate this overview. I was very impressed when I saw that CSAI had a page devoted, actually a whole section devoted for American Indian, Alaskan Native students. I was very heartened by that. And then we had one question that was really targeted to you by someone that registered earlier, and that was Sarah. And she wanted to know, and I think it ties in with what you were discussing, what type of evidence has been collected to show that the interventions have a positive effect on students? You had mentioned some did. What could you explain a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So we at CSAI don't necessarily when we produce resources that state that we have positive effects on students, we would have to conduct studies to prove that. For the resources that we review, when we review a resource, not only do we rate it to determine if it should be published, but we know that all of your time is very valuable. So one of the things that we do for every resource is produce a summary that includes our thoughts about the effectiveness, the communication style, the utility, and the evidence of the resource. And we write that up in a short 1 to 2 paragraph summary on the resource page itself so that you can quickly read through that and determine if this is going to be the resource for you or not. So if you are on the CSAI website and you're looking for specifically evidence-based instructional strategies that are culturally responsive, you could, 1, filter for that particular type of resource, and then 2, read through the summaries to see how strong the evidence is presented for that resource. If there's a resource that is presented on the website where outside studies have been done about its effectiveness, that is not necessarily included in the information for the resource itself.